Hey everybody, Hunter back again from Showtime Studios. Tutorial time. We're going to do a short tutorial here on how to use the Tamiya panel line accent color. There it is. And this happens to be the black. They also make it in a gray, a dark brown, and a light brown. And this is going to be the boldest of all the colors. It should show up pretty good on this white body on camera, so that's why I'm going to use it. But let me also remind people that I personally do not like a real dark panel line on my builds. I've seen many people do it before. One person that comes to mind is Marco's Cruz. Does black panel lines or the very dark panel lines on his builds, and it looks great. But on my models, when I'm sitting down and trying to do them, the real dark panel lines is not something that I go after. A lot of models with the panel lines that aren't real accurate, I'll try to not draw as much of the eye to those as I can. So I usually don't do anything to them other than deepen them up a little bit. So what we're going to be working with, of course, is the Tamiya panel line accent color in the black. And next up, you're going to need something to rescribe your lines with to make them just a little bit deeper and a little bit more accurate. And you can use one of the hook scribers. You can use a straight line scriber. Or what I tend to use is a brand new number 11 blade in the X-Acto knife. So we're going to take these two scribers and set over here to the side. Then you'll want to get what I call a little chip brush. This is just a flat brush about a ½ inch wide. And this is to do the cleanup of the panel lines once you're done scribing. And I've got also a little piece of sanding sponge here, 3000 grit. This is the 3M sanding sponge. So we're going to be using that. So let's jump right into the tutorial on how I go about doing this. First off, of course, you want your body. And what I like to do is go in and deepen all my panel lines. And how I go about doing that is I will take the back side of the hobby knife, not the sharp side, the back side of it. I will drop it in the panel line, and I will put just a very little bit of pressure on it, not much. You want that blade to follow the kit panel line. And all you're doing in this step is if there's any junk that got down in the panel line during the casting or the molding process, which you'll see a lot and you'll feel it on the blade, this cleans it out. So what you're shooting for is to take that blade and just with almost no pressure, just slide it through that panel line. And what you're doing is deepening that a little bit, and you're making sure there's no globs of anything in it. And then I take this little brush and I will basically scrub back and forth with the panel line just to check it out and you know, see what we got. Now, if you want to use something like a straight scriber, for you guys out there that like them, you can come in. It's the same technique. You lay the scriber in there and you just basically draw through the panel line just like that. Almost no pressure. And you can also do it with the hook style if you prefer those. They make a couple different ones. I'm not a big fan of the hook style on panel lines. It just doesn't work very well for me. But just to show you how to do it, you just run it through the panel line like that. Go in, and I always clean out the panel line each pass that I make on it just to see what all is going on in there. So now, since I've had those scribers in there, I'm going to go back through just with my X-Acto blade, and I'm going to go ahead and make a couple passes through it. Now, it may seem like you're taking a lot out. You're actually not. You're only taking out any imperfections that's down inside the panel lines. And then you just want to go like at the bottom edge of the door. Same thing, run your blade through there. Then you'll want to come up the front edge of the door here. And this does take a little bit of practice. I'm not going to guarantee you're not going to slip out of these panel lines and scar the body. I still do it. Just about every build that I deepen the panel lines on, I will jump out and scar the body somewhere. You know, it's just one of those things that it takes practice and practice and more practice. And even with a whole lot of practice and doing it hundreds of times, I still end up having a little bit of an issue with that. But practice makes perfect, I guess they say, and just keep trying it. Like I say, don't put a lot of pressure when you're doing that, dragging the knife or the scriber. Just kind of clean out the panel line. Now that we've got it cleaned out, we took our brush, we cleaned it out a little bit more. I like to take a piece of this 3000 grit sanding paper after I do that and just lightly go over top of the panel lines everywhere that we've run the scriber down through it. And what that does is if it creates any burr or whatever, it will knock the burr off. And this 3000 grit will not tend to knock your details off. So it'll actually just take that little burr out of there and make everything nice and clean and ready for primer or paint, whichever step you're going to. And then after you get done with that, I just kind of go along with the brush again, wipe everything out. And at that point, you should have everything pretty much prepared on the panel lines. Now, the next step, this Tamiya panel line accent color, you want to make sure that you shake it up real good. It's a very thinned out enamel paint, and the solids that are in the bottle tend to drop to the bottom. So you want to make sure that you shake it real good before you start. And as you're working, if you're doing, I have all the panel lines prepped and you're getting ready to put the black on them or the whichever color you're using, you might want to stop after you do, like say a door, put the cap all the way back on, tighten it down, shake the bottle up, and go to say the cowl and the nose piece, and then put the top back on again and repeat the procedure. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and jump right into putting some of the panel line accent color on. And you don't need a whole lot. And what you want to do with this is you just want to come, I basically start most times in the center of my panel line. And you just want to touch the brush to the panel line. And you can see how well this stuff flows. You can add a little bit more if you want it. And then we'll get another little dip of it here and we'll come across the bottom of the door. And you can see it flow right there. It's going right straight across. You can dot it again and it'll go the rest of the way. If you want them a little bit darker, you can actually go in and put a little bit more in. Just like that. And pretty much that's about all there is to it. Same procedure on any other panel line. Now I have scribed the cowl line here on both sides of the cowl panel. Same procedure. Just go in right in the center of it. And that's about all there is to it. Every panel line is pretty much the same way when you're doing that. Now I'll hold it up here a little bit closer and see if the camera will zoom in on this white body here. There we go. Now see the two big blobs that's right here? Don't worry about those. You're not going to worry about that at all. That's no big deal because you can do one of two things at this point in time. You can actually take your thumb or your finger or whatever and you can wipe right across that. That'll get the most of it off. But you'll see a few little, streaks that it left on here. That's fine. Let it dry and take a little bit of the Testors, either brush cleaner. This happens to be the 1156, which is enamel thinner and brush cleaner. This works real well for it. Put a little bit on a cloth, not a lot. If you happen to get too much on the cloth, just wring it out in between your fingers. Make sure you get all the dripping thinner off of the cloth. And just after this all dries up, lightly wipe across it and it'll clean up the lines real well. It'll clean up these little spots where you've touched it. Same thing with like we have here on the door. You can see a little bit of excess. You can come in. That's kind of dry right now. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and tear a piece of cloth off here. Just a little piece like that. And we'll get a little bit of the enamel thinner. And how I like to go about doing this is I'll take the cloth and actually fold it on my finger like that. And I will just let it touch and kind of wick through. And like I say, you just want to check it and make sure that you don't have anything dripping out of this because that's too wet. And what will happen is the thinner will get down in the panel line and it'll take all of the panel line accent out. So then you just want to, once everything dries, you want to go in and just very lightly wipe across the panel lines. Now, I normally don't wipe with the panel lines because when you do that, it takes a lot of the panel line out, the accent. So you kind of want to go across the panel lines just like that. And then when you get down to the bottom here, same thing. Just kind of go across the panel line. And I'm going to run that one with it because we got a little bit too much in there. There we go. That looks a little bit better. And when you're done, you basically want to come out with something that looks very close to that. Now, if that was on a white car, to me, that looks a little bit too bold. I don't really like that. See if I can get it to focus in here. Well, it's not going to focus yet. Like I say, bear with me on that. We're still working on the camera and the lighting and stuff in here, but we're going to get a little bit better as we go along. It wanted to focus right there. But those lines to me look a little bit too wide. So that's one of the things you just want to, whatever makes you happy is what you want to do with the panel lines. That's the basic procedure that works for me. You can give it a shot and see if it works for you. If it doesn't, try something else or, pick another video or whatever and see if the next person has a better procedure that'll work better for the individual doing it. But a lot of people have asked me how I do it. That's how I go about doing it. So that's all there is to it. So hopefully everybody will give us a shot and see, if you like it or not. If you don't, like a lot of times on panel lines, for me personally, I don't do any of this prep to them. I just leave them as is and paint the car and let it go. But if you do want to accent the panel lines, this is the steps that I would go through to do it. So if you have any questions or concerns on the video, just leave me a comment. Let me know. I'll be more glad to get back to you and see if we can help you out. Until next time, this is Hunter from Showtime Studios, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.